Alrighty, I think we are good to go, peeps. Go ahead and let me know if you can see me and hear me just fine, but assuming there are no technical difficulties, we are ready to begin. Let me turn the volume down here. Well, actually, okay, I think you can all see me and hear me just fine. Alright, and yes, I did start on time, which is happening more often than not. I was actually up a little bit early today, so that's the reason for that. So, my name is Nick. This is Board Game Brawl. This is our weekly Q&A. Thank you so much for stopping by. You can ask me any question you like. I don't necessarily answer every single question, but I do make an effort. And if I don't answer your question, I usually will explain why. I give a little bit of channel news at the start of every single Q&A. I didn't do a ton on the channel this week. It's just a very, very tiring week for me. I was doing a lot of stuff around the house, or apartment, actually. But other than that, I think it was okay. Let's see. In the future, I don't want to make any more promises about certain reviews that are to come, but you will see more reviews very, very soon, hopefully by tomorrow night. Also, new top 10 list, possibly a couple of top 10 lists, because I just had a couple of ideas and I want to get out as soon as possible. Maybe a top 10 and a top 5. And what else? Yes, I know the Kingdom Death stuff is still on its way. That's more work than I anticipated. But other than that, that's that. There was some controversy, of course, on the channel this week because I did a preview for the game Load, which I knew would be like, oh, this game is contentious, and there's people that have strong opinions about what's going on with this. And it was just like, people really, really were flabbergasted that I did the video. And I was like, well, okay. But I did post a response if you want to go and read that. That details my thoughts on it a bit more. Listen, some Kickstarter projects you need to do your homework on, is what I would tell you to say. If you want to know more about that project, you should definitely look up on Board Game Geek. They have tons of threads of information about it. But on the other hand, people are still backing it. So I don't know what to tell you, to be honest, and what's true and what's not. I just did a commercial for the game. But I would never tell people to blindly go and back or purchase anything. Do your research and then come to your own conclusion. But in that event, let's go ahead and get to the questions. So there are a few that have stacked up since I began ranting. Actually, there was one that got eaten. I really hate that. Like, of all the stupid things, right? And you guys may not know this, but YouTube will just eat comments. If people ask questions ahead of time, YouTube just eats them. And I don't know the rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes I used to think it was like, oh, well, if I look at the Q&A before it starts, it will reset the questions. But that doesn't seem to be the case either, so I don't know. But I looked yesterday, and there was a question, and now it's not here. So let me find it, because I copy and pasted it somewhere else. And we'll start with that one. There may be others that were eaten. This is the only one I know of. So if you asked a question before, and I'm not responding to it now, ask it again. If the board game media can be unbiased with the amount of influence from the industry, has your take on this changed at all? Okay, I'm not sure if your question was perhaps not grammatically correct, and I'm not getting it for that reason. Or maybe you're just asking, do you still believe that media can be biased by the industry? Yes, absolutely I do. I mean, but that's not anything in particular to board gaming. I mean, that's a fact of life. And look, that's why I clearly delineate when I do paid previews and when I don't. Now, some people still think there's some ethical concerns with that, but I don't know what else I can do to calm everyone else's fears who thinks like that. Commercial is a commercial, and then my reviews are my reviews. I'll never let someone pay me for my final opinion about whether or not someone should purchase a game if it's right for them. Now, are there people that let that happen? I don't know for sure. I can only speculate. My opinion is yes, that people, sometimes people don't even know that they're necessarily being influenced by the industry. Because when you say the industry, what that also means is people like designers, publishers, developers, people who have a vested financial interest in making sure that their game or product or whatever the case might be is successful. And when you become friends with these people, which is very easy to do. I mean, we're still a very tight knit community in a lot of senses, despite how much we've grown. As far as hardcore gamers go, it's still very tight-knit. So then you get at a case where you run into the same people at conventions all the time, you run into the same people online all the time, you run in the same circles online, Twitter, Facebook. You get to know these people, they seem human to you. Well, they are human, but I mean, they seem very like they're someone you've just known, and they're a friend of yours. And so then they come out with a game, and you're like, yeah, I'll take a look at it. And you're like, I don't want to give this a bad review. So you end up giving a review that's either very, like, not as harsh as it possibly should be, or too glowing, like way above and beyond what the game deserves, or you just choose not to review it whatsoever. But by not choosing to review something, you're making a choice. You're saying, well, I've reviewed other bad games, but I'll leave this one alone. Well, why? Now, again, this is just pure, like, these are the types of things that could happen. But it's very easy to see how it could happen. And that's, part of the problem. And I think that that's something that's just sort of a growing pain of this industry. And it happens in all industries, by the way, right? Now, obviously, in the video game industry, the Gamergaters said that it was happening rampantly. Now, I have a lot of strong thoughts about what Gamergate was actually about. But it's happened in movie reviews, book reviews, I'm sure. It's just a thing that you kind of have to... We have to grow to the point where it's not as... how's the right way to say it? Where if it happens, it's not as noticeable. Meaning that it should be pointed out and it should be taken care of. But if there was lots more of not objective, but if there were many more reviewers and many more opinionated reviewers and many more brutal reviewers out there, I think that this problem wouldn't seem as bad as it is now. But now, even though there are a lot of board game reviewers, most people only get their information from like 3 or 4, and then everyone else is just kind of background noise. I might still be considered background noise, probably, to a degree. And so that's problematic, because then if people are only getting their information from a few sources, not just reviews, but news in general, which can also be biased, who gets what coverage and who doesn't, when that happens, then it's very difficult to figure out am I getting the full picture here, or is this the thing that's getting passed off not only biased by the person's the either reviewers or journalists' opinions of what they like, but is it also biased by their connections and who they like and don't like personally? If we were maybe a couple years down the road, I don't know if this would be such a big deal, because you'd have so many different sources to pull from. But that's just my opinion, which you should take with a grain of salt. Thank you for comments on the logo. Very happy with that. I don't know if the designer wants me to promote him or not. Someone asked me that on Facebook. I don't know, because I had someone who helped me with some graphic design work in the past who was like, just keep my name out of it. So I want to make sure that he or she actually wants to know that. Has your opinion on Galaxy Defenders changed since the time you had reviewed the base game? I'm looking into getting Sword and Sorcery, also from Ares Games? Yeah. But wanted to learn about your current opinion on his predecessor. Well, I got rid of, that sounds awful, but I removed from my collection Galaxy Defenders soon after my review. I liked Galaxy Defenders. I thought it was very interesting. There were some very interesting things going on with it. Cooperative game, nice miniatures, nice theme, science fiction theme, most of like what I have as far as cooperative games, and or even one versus all cooperative games, semi-cooperative games, are fantasy based, so that was a neat thing too. I just thought the Galaxy Defenders was good, but not like great or amazing. It had a really big box, so I'm like, okay, some games have to go. I can't keep everything. This has got to go. Even back then, at that point, my collection was starting to get a bit out of hand, and especially now, there's no way I would be able to get it. Now, I have been curious about the expansions. I know that someone in my group, who I see irregularly, he has like everything for it. That's one of the few Kickstarter projects that he backed and went all in for. So maybe in the future I'll try it. So I think it's a fine game. I personally haven't held on to it, so I can't tell you if my opinion would have changed had I held on to it and continued to play it semi-regularly. I don't know. As far as Sword and Sorcery, that might be fine too. I was critical of that game in my Kickstarter update at the time when I still had it, because I just felt it was super generic. Like, even the name Sword and Sorcery, I was wondering what new it brought to the table, and I couldn't find really anything. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm just going to scroll down and make sure. Let's see. Hold on a second. All right. Sorry. What's the best expansion to Cosmic Encounter to get straight after the base game? So I would say the first expansion, not the first expansion, but the first one that gave you rewards cards, special rewards cards. I can't remember which one that is. I always forget the names. So it wasn't the very first expansion, but whatever one gives you the extra rewards cards, the first one of those, because there's 2 sets that gives you rewards cards. I think the last expansion that they put out gave you some as well, or maybe the one before that. But the first one that gave you rewards cards, I think was the best, because those cards add a lot of really interesting depth to the game, and also... And options. Options are great. And it's easily integrated into the base game. I almost just feel like it should be in the base, like in the base game as it is. And if you don't know, rewards cards basically are, instead of drawing cards from the main deck, you can choose to draw from the rewards deck instead. And it gives you like wild and crazy abilities, but still like manageable. And then they revisited that with the later expansion that I had mentioned that had even more crazy abilities. Those are fine too, but the original is good. Also, the original was one of the expansions that added another player to the mix. I can't remember what color pieces, but bringing it up to 6 players, also awesome. So, because I do believe that like 5 or 6 players is the sweet spot for that game. 7 or 8 gets to be a little extreme, as does, and 4 is still okay. 3 is unplayable. So having an expansion that gives you at least 1 or 2 more players, but also having those rewards cards is the best thing to do. Find out what expansion that is, because I don't remember. It's like Cosmic Incursion or something. What's your favorite car, man? I'm not into cars that much. I like the Teslas. If I said, okay, I just want to get a car right now and I have the money for it, and it needs to be like practical. I guess a Tesla's not that practical, considering the infrastructure is not really there for charging your car everywhere you need to. But I'd still probably get one. Or I like is it the X6? I like those cars that look like a hybrid between an SUV and a sedan. I don't want a big blocky SUV, but something a little more than a sedan would be nice. Congratulations on 20,000 subs. You have enough followers to wage a medieval war. It's funny you mentioned that. I kind of think about that all the time and what I could do if I mobilized all of you. We'll work it out. I'll put out a notice. But thank you. Hello from Belgium again. You Belgian people, just so clingy. I'm just kidding. That's awesome. I love international viewers. Nice new logo. Thank you very much. Have you received the Zombicide? Well, I'm so glad you brought this up, because that reminds me. Have you received the Zombicide Black Plague second wave stuff? If so, are you going to review it? Yes, I got to talk to the guy. I did a trade for that stuff, and I got to talk to the guy. He was supposed to send it to me. I'm not sure that he did. But he might just be busy. But I got to get that stuff. And yes, I'll probably do an unboxing and all that stuff. When you do the review for Star Trek Frontiers, will you only mention the differences with Mage Knight, or do a separate review showing the differences? Are they that similar? I get the impression that there are some significant differences, aside from it being the same engine running the game. I would plan on doing a full review. Well, I don't know. It depends. Because actually what I might do is do them back to back, meaning at the same time, because I haven't reviewed, technically, I've talked about it at length, but I have not done an actual review of Mage Knight before. So I might do that together with Star Trek Frontiers, and in that case, I might just tell you how to play the original and then explain at length all the differences in Star Trek Frontiers. But I don't know. It depends. I thought they would be much more different than that, but I might be wrong. Why are you always the overlord, game master, leader of your gaming groups? Are others not as capable as you? They're all fools. No, they are capable, I'm sure. But the problem is, I'm the one who usually reads the rule book ahead of time or at the time, and people just feel more comfortable if I do it. I've offered before, like, okay, does anyone else want to play the overlord? Everyone's like, nobody wants that responsibility. It is more work. It's always more work. Well, I think it's always more work when you're the overlord or you're the one. So that also goes for games like Fury of Dracula. Like, one time I was able to talk Ian, who's been on the channel before, into playing Dracula. All the other times, I'm the one that everyone else is hunting. It's fine. At what income would you feel comfortable buying a $900,000 home? That's a pretty loaded question. Wouldn't it be a matter of, like, what your mortgage is and all that? I don't know. I pay, I don't know if I should even say that. I pay a pretty hefty amount in rent because of my location and the convenience in the neighborhood. So, I don't know. I think I could probably, for a home that I would have to spend this much on a mortgage for, I'd probably have a pretty decent home. Except that it's not just that, right? You also need the down payment and all that stuff. So how long until you are officially part of the TYT network? I don't think that's going to happen, but I liked the fact that I interacted with John Idarola on Twitter the other day, and that he actually was a fan and watched my videos. I'm like, ah! That's amazing. Because John is a gamer. John's one of the best hosts on that network. I might say the best host aside from Jenk, because of course Jenk is the best. But everyone knows that. How's Less Clutter living now that Purgatory has moved into storage? Well, I'm not done. In fact, after this, I'm going to get another stack or 3 of games and take them over to the storage unit because I still can't fit everything on the shelves. I want nothing on the floor. Well, nothing's really on the floor. Well, okay, there's some stuff on the floor. But I want nothing on the floor. I want nothing on the tables. I want all that stuff cleared off. And maybe even, well, ultimately, I don't want stuff on the tops of the shelves either. Like, so you see how I've got games on the top of my shelves there. Those are games I want to keep and I like, but I don't like that. I don't know. I want everything in the shelves. But it is better. It's definitely better, and I'm making progress. Once I got the storage unit, I'm like, oh, it's not just going to be for games because I've got a ton of crap in my closet I also need to get rid of and have more room to actually breathe. And it's better for my dogs because right now it's just Bugbear. Honeybee got taken back by my ex, but it had to be annoying for them because they're navigating stacks of games. So I'm going to Orlando next year. Would you recommend all of the Disney parks? I haven't been to Disney in a long time, Liam, so I'm probably not qualified to answer that question. When I had been to Disney back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, I thought that the Magic Kingdom was fine. It's pretty interesting. And was that the only one I've ever been to? See, I have been more recently and more often, I have been to Universal Studios, which is close to... It's in Orlando, and it's close to Disney. And I found Universal Studios to be much more enjoyable for me, because Universal Studios, while it does have family-oriented parks and family-oriented like rides and stuff, it also has much more stuff for adults to do, as far as like rides, nightlife, events, and things like that. So, yeah, but I hear Disney, some areas of Disney I haven't been to are awesome, like Epcot. Like if you go to Epcot during their like they have like wine and cheese festivals and things like that. I would always wanted to go to that. Let's see. I hope someone translates what Guao Yao says, because I don't know. Chris had some questions that were rescued. Hey Nick, you should what? What? Oh, did I miss part of that first guy's question? Hey Nick, you should back talk 5 friends on the industry. I still don't understand this question at all. I'm sorry. Okay, so apparently the question I answered before at the start, which was about bias in the industry, was the reason he asked that question is because he watched a video from the Dice Tower that is called Friends in the Industry that apparently addressed this. I never watched the video. I don't know. I'm not particularly inclined to watch it, but listen, I mean, whatever the case may be, if they may have a perfectly valid opinion, I think I have a perfectly valid opinion. So, Nick, the first Kickstarter I backed because I saw it on your channel just arrived this morning. It looks amazing. Thanks for the information about upcoming stuff. By the way, it was Centauri Saga. Well, that's is then not a coincidence per se. Because I got my review copy in the mail yesterday. Haven't even opened it yet. It literally just came in the mail yesterday. So I have no idea when I'll actually put up a review. So he's talking about I did a paid preview for it, so obviously I'm not going to tell you my thoughts on that, which would be unfair anyways. Now I have the full and final version, and we'll see. But I'm glad that you think it looks amazing. I hope that you enjoy the game as well, even if I don't, because I would like to know that I influence you to make a wise decision for yourself. Did you back the recent Kickstarter hits like Anachrony or this war of mine? Neither of them. I thought Anachrony looks fine. I thought this war of mine looks good too. I'm just very selective about what I back nowadays. I have too many games as it is, you know? And yes, and Angela would also translate for me for that other person's response, and I don't know if it was Mandarin. Even though I don't always understand what you're saying, but as a tabletop game fan, I do enjoy your channel's recommendations. Well, thank you, Gu Yao. I appreciate that, because honestly, I would have believed that if you can't understand what I'm saying, there's no reason to watch this channel, because I am not exactly the best in the looks department. In fact, the top of my head is being cut off by my position of the camera. That's probably bad. That's too much. Too much, too much, too much. Too much. But the sexy close-up of my thumb, that was worth the price of admission, which was 0. Would you buy a deep strategic game with great mechanisms and theme, even though you've a feeling you'd struggle to give the players a fun challenge because you're just not as strategically capable as them? Oh, I don't care about that. I'm pretty stupid. I'm pretty sure I don't give a lot of people a run for their money in some of these games that we play, but that's their problem. That's their problem. I'm just there to play the game. I don't know about that. I sometimes do very well. Did I win that one game of Terra Mystica that we played? Yeah, by all rights, I should have lost that game because that is not my wheelhouse. But I played against people who were heavy Euro gamers, and I still did. Either I won or I did very well. On the other hand, we played Euphoria for the first time in a long time last week, and I got destroyed. Actually, it was a 3-player game, which is probably not a great player count for that, come to think of it. That game really does better with more. It goes up to 6. But in any case, one player ran away with the game, and I think the other two of us were tied, but we were awful. The thing about Euphoria is I still like that game. I'm going to hold on to it, but I probably didn't emphasize this enough in my original review because that was a long time ago when I was still getting my legs under me. Euphoria is very dependent on the character powers that you get, and I feel like some of the character powers are really powerful. Others are much more selectively powerful. But anyways, I digress. The point is, I'm not the best at some of these deeply strategic games, but listen, I don't know why people would be upset by that. If anything, a lot of these games, since it feels like solitaire play anyways, like these heavy Euro games, you're just trying to, define and perfect your strategies anyways. Just think of me as fighting against the dummy player in a fighting game. I'm being self-deprecating, by the way. I think I'm okay at those games. Have you played Descent Solo with the new app? No. Gosh, I need the time to do that. But I just ordered a bunch of expansion content from our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, so do check them out. And I plan to, so I'll probably just wait for that at this point, but that's going to be good because I'll have a ton of content to plug into the app. If you don't know, the way that the Descent solo app works is that essentially you tell the game what content you have from the, you tell the app what content you have from the physical game. So of course the base game, but then if you have any of the expansion, the big expansions, the small character and monster expansions, the lieutenant packs, all these things, you can plug it all into the app, and then when it comes out with the randomized adventures, it will use that content. So the more you have, the more robust the game is, supposedly. Now, of course, the cynic in me knows that this is just a money grab in a sense, because it's like, oh, well, we have this cool new app and a new way to play Descent, and the more stuff you have, the more content you'll get, so buy it all! And I'm totally fine with that. I've made my peace with that. Hey Nick, Lance, the Undead Viking, Lance Mixter, got crap for his preview of Load. He also said, hey, here's the game. I am just talking about the game. Choose yourself what to do. Yeah, and I probably should have said that too, because in the video itself, I just didn't address it at all. I had to make comments afterwards when I started getting heat for it. There's like, hey, listen. Let's calm down a minute here. This is a commercial. Do with it what you will. So yeah, but it's a weird thing, right? Because then if you do, and by the way, I'm very sympathetic and empathetic to Lance, because we were in the same boat, and for him, more so perhaps because he was doing a review. So he does opinionated reviews of Kickstarter games, of prototypes, and I believe, according to what people have told me, he won't do a review unless he likes the game. So he probably felt even more pressure to address it. I was like, well, listen, if I'm going to address this and be totally upfront and honest and put all their dirty laundry out there on the video, then what's the point of them having me do the video? I might as well just say I'm not doing it, and I didn't want to go back on the contract. So we were both in very awkward positions, he probably more so, and so I have a lot of sympathy for him. It's just one of those things. I've done a ton of previews. Nothing like this has ever happened before, so I don't think it'll be a trend. I've done previews of games that were just like, no one was going to back this thing anyways, but no one cares. This is just a really high-profile thing that they decided to wrangle some preview videos for. So, what do you think the next fad genre in board games will be? Oh, I think Legacy is the new current fad, and I think you're going to see more and more riffs on that. You're not going to see people... See, that's going to be the interesting thing. It's not going to be Legacy like Rob Davio does. You know, he coined the term, and unless people use the name, he doesn't care. It's going to be Legacy games for the people who hate Legacy games, which is to say games that allow you to do resets and doesn't make you destroy components. Now, to me and to a lot of other people, that kind of defeats the entire purpose, but okay, fine. I think that's going to be the thing, because people want iterative content, people want changing content, consistently changing, or something like that, so where you have decisions to make, important decisions that have ramifications. But people don't want to destroy their games. I get it. Listen, if you were telling me I have to start tearing up Kingdom Death cards every time I make a decision, we might have an issue. But for games that are made that way, I don't have a problem. Other people are outraged that Pandemic Legacy even exists and that it's a horrible trend to start in the industry. So I think that while that in itself is a new fad genre, catering to the people who hate that genre in itself will become a fad genre. I've kind of seen that already. I mean, what's the one that everyone was talking about? Gloomhaven was kind of that. So, Spectre Ops or Fury of Dracula, which do you prefer and why? I like them both, and they're both in my collection, and will be for the foreseeable future. I'm not going to tell people which one to pick over the other. You just need to know the differences between them. Fury of Dracula is a much heavier game. Fury of Dracula has a lot more going on. It takes a lot longer to play. That would be a downside to it. And the theme is completely different too. It's Dracula, and more directly based off of Bram Stoker's Dracula to a degree. Obviously, it's dramatized. Well, the original is a work of fiction, anyways. But you know what I mean. It's way more over the top. But Spectre Ops is, well, they both have the same premise. Find this person who's running around. Everyone else is cooperating together. Spectre Ops, I think, different sci-fi theme, a lot lighter, much faster to play, easier to teach, easier to learn. But by doing that, you're giving up depth and, you know, a lot of really neat mechanisms that Fury of Dracula has. So it is entirely dependent on what kind of game group you have. If you have a game group that likes heavier games, is perfectly okay with it, and maybe likes Dracula theme more than science fiction, Fury of Dracula 2nd edition is the way to go. You don't need to go back to the 1st edition or the 2nd edition. No, 3rd edition is the one they're on now. 1st edition is way different. It's from Games Workshop from the 80s or 90s. But if your group is just not going to be down for playing a game that's potentially like 3 or 4 hours long and doesn't want something that's really heavy with a lot of rules, explanation, mechanisms going on, and likes a science fiction theme better, then you want Spectre Ops. Decide for yourself. But I like them both. Most anticipated upcoming board game. What is it now? What is it this time? That's a deep cut. I'll say Seafall. I'm really excited for Seafall. Another legacy game. From the man himself, Rob Davio. This is ridiculous. What's that movie where the terrorists want Bruce Willis to die, but he's making it very hard? The Sixth Sense. Come on, man. It's ridiculous. Your thoughts on the Load Kickstarter controversy? Well, I wonder. You may not have noticed my... someone else addresses this later. Go to my preview and look at the comments. Fury of Dracula versus Letters from Whitechapel is a better comparison. Well, it is, although perhaps the original question asker asked that question because he or she knows I have both games in my collection. Because I don't have Letters from Whitechapel in my collection because I don't like it. I thought Letters from Whitechapel was just too dry for me, which is shocking and kind of sad because the theme is great. Well, Jack the Ripper is kind of macabre, of course, but I thought it was a very interesting theme that you either are Jack the Ripper himself or herself or a bunch of investigators who are trying to catch that person. But what ends up happening, though, is that it's a very, very just straightforward, mathy, trying to find this person thing. Whereas in Fury of Dracula, you've got special powers and event cards, and you're running around, and Dracula can turn into mist and wolves, and whereas Jack the Ripper just has like a carriage that you can use very rarely through the game. Will you ever do a top 10 most hated board games? Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. I would never do a top 10 worst board games because that is so, specific. And also, I don't know, doing an entire list that is all just negative stuff. That's why I put my top 5 best and worst mechanisms into the same list. Because I thought, let's just pair the good stuff with the bad stuff. But top 10 most hated board games can be different. Because that doesn't mean they're the worst. It just means they're the games that people tend to hate the most. That might be interesting. Because, then you could say, Munchkin. And it wouldn't just be a Munchkin bash fest. It would be like, hey, look, a lot of people hate Munchkin. Why? A lot of people hate Monopoly. Why? That's an interesting thought. Thanks for bringing that up. What do you think about Seafall? There you go. Are you going to pre-order it? Yeah, I did pre-order it. I may also be getting a review copy. If that's the case, I'll probably give one away in a contest. I can't decide if I should jump on Pandemic Iberia now. Any idea on actual release dates? Well, I think it's a Gen Con release. Maybe not. Maybe it's an Origins release. I don't know. But it's up for pre-order at Cool Stuff. I always see it in the sidebar of things that I'm looking at. I'm kind of over regular Pandemic. I'm all about the Pandemic Legacy at this point. So I don't know about it. But it is very interesting as opposed to the original. Pandemic Iberia is it's supposed to be like a period piece set in this country of Iberia, and you're I don't know a ton about it, to be honest. I'm kind of just, but I think you're literally just taking medicine from town to town, that kind of thing. Do you know when the Dead of Winter expansion will actually come out? Plaid Hat says one date range, Miniature Market says another. Just seeing if you had any secret Nick knowledge. Thanks. I don't have any secret Nick knowledge. I have been sort of kind of keeping an eye on it. I thought it was an Origins release, because I did get a press release when it was originally officially announced with pictures and everything. And I thought they said they'd have a limited quantity at Origins and then would be shipping to the people that pre-ordered either right before, during, or after. I can't remember. I think so. I think it's soon. It's not a Gen Con release. It's before that, unless it gets delayed. Nick, are you ever keen on Orange is the New Black? I just got into it because Netflix just got to Singapore a few months back. I love it, she says. I haven't watched that, but it has been recommended to me by several people. I'm not into the theme that much. Not the fact that it's all women, but the fact that it's all women in a prison. I felt it was like I didn't watch Oz either, despite how critically acclaimed that was, because it just seems very depressing to me. But again, it's recommended by a lot of people, including you, Angela, and I do trust I value your opinion. So I don't know, one of these days. But the thing is, I have a lot of shows to get to. Now all the superhero shows are done. A lot of my shows that were in season are done. Game of Thrones and Preacher now is just starting. I've heard good things about Outcast, so I'm going to start watching that. The AV Club, who I trust implicitly with their movie and TV show reviews, gave a very high recommendation to Outcast. I'm just checking the audio real quick. There you go. And so I'm going to get into that. Also, I want to start watching The Americans. I've always heard that that's an amazing show. Zombicide Black Plague is coming in waves. None of the backers I know have received it yet. Well, a few have. I know for sure. I know people in Australia have gotten it, and I'm pretty sure the guy in America who's supposed to ship it to me got it. Which games have you not played that make you doubt your own credibility? For me, it is Puerto Rico and Race for the Galaxy. I've played Race for the Galaxy. I don't like it. I have not played Puerto Rico, though. I don't know. At this point, I used to think that way, right? Like, when I started the channel, when I really got into the channel and realized, I could make something out of this channel, I wanted to be an omni gamer. I wanted to review as many different types and genres of games as possible in order to have a well-rounded channel and to appeal to as many people as possible. I gave up on that idea very quickly because I realized that if that happens, I'm going to play a lot of games that I hate, and it's just going to kill my enthusiasm for the channel and other people's enthusiasm to watch me. And I decided to focus more on the games that I had a pretty strong indication that I would like, and if I ended up hating a game, I'd review it, but at least it would be interesting because I'd have a lot to say about it. And the reason I say this is because what this has led to is me avoiding a lot of those games, which are very ubiquitous. I mean, they're games that are perpetually at the tops of Board Game Geek's top 100 lists and so on and so forth, like Puerto Rico, like Through the Ages, although I do have the new Through the Ages. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I just don't feel propelled like it's mandatory. Some people might, but the people who would say that it's mandatory would be Board Game Geek type people who are not my audience, okay? That has become abundantly clear, okay? And it's not to say that I don't want to play them eventually, and I do, like you indicate, I do feel like I have gaps in my knowledge, but the other thing to keep in mind is that there are so many games out there now. So many. And a lot of games that are... I've always thought that games are a progression. That the whole like standing on the shoulders of giants type things, right? Like, okay, because Puerto Rico was so famous and innovated so many different things, it enabled all of these other games to be made, which might actually innovate further and improve what Puerto Rico set forth. So, if I play a Euro game that I feel is amazing, that has things in common with Puerto Rico, what is the incentive for me to go back and play Puerto Rico? That's my thought, and I'm just using that as an example. A lot of games you could say that. I'm sure there's a lot of Ameritrash games where I'm like, oh, well, this kind of does what I need it to do. Like, I have Doom and Gears of War, and looking at it and just looking at a broad overview of the mechanisms, I'm like, oh, Descent kind of does all of this, or Imperial Assault. Why would I bother? So it's, I do feel there's gaps in my knowledge. Sometimes I feel like, I really should play that before I start commenting on it. But on the other hand, I'm like, I have so much to play. Why would I bother? But it's an interesting question, though, Charles. Preacher, did you like it? I did. I liked the pilot a lot. I'm eager for the next episode. They skipped a week, so I think it's coming tomorrow, along with another Game of Thrones, which is really good this season, and Outcast. I want to start watching. Outcast not on tomorrow. I just brought it up. Is Crossmasters good? Yes. I actually have Crossmaster Quest I need to review. They sent it to me for review, so I should review it. But the original Crossmaster, I had like almost everything for it. I just got rid of it because I liked it, but I was never going to play it. And it being primarily a 2-player game or a team game, just kind of not going to make it to the table that often. But it's a good game and it looks great. Nick, I would still love to see a weekly or monthly Kickstarter update from you. I always felt that you highlighted excellent games. So I'm not going to lie, I have at times since I stopped doing it thought, I should do that again. And when people like you ask me, I'm like, I feel wistful about it. And I'm like, and I feel bad because my primary goal in the channel has always been just do what I want to do and hope that people follow along, and that people who share my enthusiasm will follow along with the videos I choose to create, right? But on the other hand, I also love giving you guys stuff that I know that you like and that you want to see, because it makes me happy that you guys are happy. It really does. However, every time I feel wistful about it, I think about it at length, and I'm just like, no, I'm not going back. And I've sort of solidified that as time has gone on. The Kickstarter update, it was very interesting. Whenever there was a controversy like there is with Load, it was interesting and fun to talk about it. Whenever there was just a thing I was super enthusiastic about and excited about, I'd be like, yeah, I love talking about it. But a lot of times, I just felt like I was doing free advertising for Kickstarters. And it's not to say that everything should be that cynical, right? And I do paid previews, and so I'm not above doing advertising, but I just felt as the Kickstarter updates went on, I got an escalating amount of emails begging me to feature their project. And you see other people's channels, and I'm not talking about any of the big major reviewers, but there are people out there, smaller channels, whose entire purpose is to give free advertising to Kickstarter projects. And they may not actually acknowledge that or even know it themselves, but the only games, or the majority of games that they review, are prototypes from Kickstarter projects. And I'm just like, I don't want to be that ever again. I want to review final published games primarily, and if I'm not doing that, it's just going to be a commercial, and you better pay me for it, because my time is valuable, and it's time that's taken away from me doing other things. So as interesting as it might be to talk about some Kickstarters, I think it's fine to talk about them here. I don't know about doing a full video. I'm going to leave that kind of stuff for my Q&As, and it's good content for my Q&As. But I take your point, WWE. It's hard to abbreviate your name. And I take your point, World Wrestling Entertainment. And the part of me is wistful to do it again, but a larger part of me is no. Recommendation: fill the shelves with your top 100 over a few weeks, add games until shelves are full, and sell the rest. Well, it's kind of what I do already. I mean, every game that's on my shelf is in my top 100 for sure, and then the rest is the rest. I'm weeding it out. There's some things that you see on my shelves right now that are on their way out. I just haven't taken them down yet. Nick, I have to go to a wedding right now and do one of the readings. Any public speaking tips? I don't speak in public very much. Doing videos is completely different than speaking in front of people. But what I would say is just don't think of it as anything other than I'm speaking right now, and there are people who happen to be here. I think that people, and I've done this in the past before as well, tend to think of it as more like this giant monolithic thing like speaking in front of people. But really, you're just speaking, right? So especially if it's at a wedding and people are going to be pretty soused as it is, I mean, like, especially if there's an open bar, I would just not worry about it, okay? Be yourself, be honest, be genuine, be respectful, be courteous, which is what you should do all the time. Tell yourself, oh, this is how I should be speaking all the time. And then it becomes better for you. And that's actually how I've gotten to be, well, I don't do a lot of like actual, like I'm up at a podium speaking type things. I meet new people all the time, and that used to be crippling for me when I was younger. But now it's just like, yeah, just talk. Just talk, be your best self. Do what Chris Rock says, which is, he always says, like, when you meet someone for the first time, you're not meeting them. You're meeting their ambassador. You're meeting the best version of themselves. Do you always play to win, or do you sometimes play sub? I don't know what that word was supposed to be, but I would say, do you play suboptimally in order to, oh boy, in order to let the new person win? I'm just putting in words because your grammar's all over the place. I always play to win. I have crushed some people sometimes and felt bad about it afterwards, but I don't know. Unless it's like a child, I don't see the point in letting people win. Most important is to teach them the game, right? How often are you still playing KDM? I just got into holiday plus internship period, and I'm doing 4 campaigns simultaneously, and it's fun, but a chore keeping up. Yeah, I don't play it as much as I would like. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do a video series, because I thought it would be the impetus for me to play it even more, and hopefully it still will be. I saw you did a review for Lord of the Rings, the board game, but not the LCG. Incorrect. I did a review of the LCG. It's on my channel somewhere, and I wasn't positive about it. I'll just spoil that for you now. But it's still interesting to watch, I think. What apps have completely replaced the physical board game counterparts? Interesting that you mentioned that, because as I'm seeing it in the video behind me, I am seriously on the fence about getting rid of my physical Pathfinder adventure card game boxes. Part of me does not want to do it. But part of me is like, the app does everything that the board game does. It doesn't have all the expansion content yet. It doesn't have the 2 other base sets yet. But it has everything from Rise of the Rune Lords, except for like the extra character packs. But that's the thing too. Like, well, someone said that to me. Like, well, Nick, it doesn't have all the extra character options, the extra add-on packs, and things like that. I'm like, yeah, but am I really willing? If that's the case, if that's the make or break deal, I haven't bought any of the character packs for the physical games because I'm unwilling to do it. So if that's the case, what is stopping me from getting rid of the physical parts? I'm seriously tempted. We'll see what happens. But if you suddenly see them gone from my channel one day, like, because I think they're always behind me from where I'm standing. But if you ever see, like, during the Q&As and they're just gone, there's games in that spot, that's the reason. Warcraft fan? Are you going to see the movie? I was a fan of Warcraft 1 and 2. My friends and I used to play the shit out of that game on Mac. My one friend had a Mac at the time. This was back in 97 and 98. He was the only friend of mine who had a computer capable of running it, and we all used to just trade off playing it. Our rich friends, there would be like maybe six to 8 of us who were all in the same circle of friends, and we would all sleep over at his house like every single weekend, and we all would play around his computer, and we all had our own save files and folders on his computer where we kept all of our own personal stuff. That's how it was, a big communal computer, and it was really interesting thinking back on it now. But that's what we had to do, and we were like, oh, it's my turn on the computer. Okay, fine. And then we'd look up porn or whatever it was, right? But but we also used to play a lot of Warcraft, and then eventually when Warcraft 2 came out, BattleNet started up where we could play via dial-up, and that was really cool. So I like the old school Warcraft. I actually bought Warcraft 3 but barely played it at all before I moved on and got a new computer and got rid of all that stuff. So I like the original Warcraft. I haven't played World of Warcraft. I'm so out of that whole world. And I've seen the reviews for the Warcraft movie, and unless it's so bad it's good, which I was kind of hoping Red Letter Media would do a review of it, but as time goes on, it seems less likely. I hope they do, though. They did a review of X-Men Apocalypse and Civil War, and they tend to do things right away if they're going to do them at all. I hope they do Warcraft. Knowing them, they'd either hate it completely or love it because it's so bad. We've got about 10 minutes left. Have you ever returned someone's money and decided not to work with them after they told you how to preview it or criticize your work? No. So, I've never had that experience with doing a preview. I have had a very scant few bad experiences with previews where basically I'm just like, I'm doing the preview, that's it. You want your money back? If that's the case, I'm not going to do the video. The video gets taken down. You get nothing, and because I already did the work for it, you're only getting half your money back. That happened maybe twice, and the person ended up not doing that and just said, fine, just do it. Because it ended up being a disaster, and I told the person this game is crap, or whatever the case might be. I'm not going to go into all the details on that, but I wouldn't worry about it. They're previews that like nobody watched. So you would not even know if I mentioned it. But I haven't had any like horrible, like horrifically bad experiences with previews yet, despite the fact that the potential for that to happen, right? We're dealing with prototypes, with people who are very passionate about their work, and one thing I did learn, however, is never ever give anyone your opinion. I tell the people up front, so I'm doing this video and it's not going to have my final opinion. And then what a lot of times people end up saying, I'll give them the link to the video and say, okay, I'm done. And they'll say, oh, great, thanks, Nick. Really appreciate your hard work on this. It came out great. So what did you actually think of the game? I know you can't give your opinion in the video, but what did you actually think of it? Once upon a time, I would actually answer that question. And now I tell them, sorry, I'm not telling you that. Nobody likes it when you pick apart their work. And a lot of times when I do a review of a final full version of a game, there's so much distance between me and whoever actually produced it, right? So I'm not, when I crap all over Back to the Future, the card game, I don't know those guys who did it. I'm in no contact with them whatsoever. And so there's nothing that, I don't know if they care or not, right? When someone I've been communicating with directly asks me, hey, what did you actually think of the game? And I say, oh man, this, and this, and this, and this are awful. Why would you even do this? That's a whole different story. And it's not that I'm scared to do that, but at a certain point I'm just like, look, you paid me to do a preview video. Obviously, you're on Kickstarter or about to go on Kickstarter. This is your passion. I'm not going to crap all over your work. I mean, what do I know? I mean, I'm just another reviewer, and I didn't get brought on to do a review of this game. And again, this goes back to my larger point, and why I choose not to review prototypes in general, preview or not, because it's not fair. Because these projects change constantly. Now, you can make a whole other story and an argument about how maybe it shouldn't change. How when someone chooses to go on to Kickstarter, the game that you are backing should be pretty much the game. That the only thing that should change is like the component quality and things like that, or maybe some more stuff gets added to it, but the game should be the game. However, we all know that in practice that's not the case. There's been tons of games that I personally have backed, or that I've just seen, that I've done Kickstarter updates on, or whatever the case might be, where the end game is way different than what was actually on Kickstarter. And so that's one of the reasons why it's not just because I want the money from a paid preview, it's because I will not review the game. It's not fair to anybody. So I have stopped giving any kind of opinion, even in private, to the designer or designer/publisher, because it's just not fair. Ego Dark, I'm not even sure what your previous question was. Crossmasters. Okay. Yeah, I said it was good. Bets for the Spiel des Jahres winners. Kenner Spiel as well. Bet. So if I was going to bet, I'd say Codenames and Pandemic Legacy, respectively, for their two categories. If not them, then I would say Karuba and Time Stories would be the runners-up. Are you excited about the Dead of Winter expansion? Of course! Actually, so I played Dead of Winter exhaustively when I was one of the playtesters for the original, and so I played it exhaustively then, and that was a near final version. They changed a couple of small things, and then when I got the full final version, I played it like another 8 to 9 times, right? But I haven't played it a lot since. It's been a long time, and so maybe at least 6 to 7 months since I played a game of it, and so I'm very eager to not only play it again, but to play with the new stuff. And this is a new base game. A lot of people don't know. Maybe you do know, I don't know, but it's not just an expansion. It is an expansion. All the content can be mixed together, but it's also a full base game, which is going to be so much to explore. So I'm very excited for it. Hey Nick, are you going to be reviewing the Silver Tower Mighty Heroes expansion? Is that just the extra heroes, or is there a full other expansion? Because let's take a look. Let's take a look. Because so I have the extra promo heroes. I have the app, but is there a actual physical expansion? Oh yeah, look at this. Oh yeah, well these are the 4 that I have the cards for. Oh, interesting. Okay, so here I actually was going to, on my own, purchase each of these miniatures. All right, if you guys don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, there are promo characters for Warhammer, or there were promo characters for Warhammer Quest Silver Tower, which I reviewed this week, right? They're printed in the back of the book, and if you were lucky enough to get the actual physical promos like I was at my location, I got or foil versions of the original base characters, and then I had physical versions of the cards for these other 4 characters, which are purely optional. And you can just proxy the models if you want, but there were no physical models. So apparently, they're making a set to have everything all together. And now these models do exist. I was actually considering purchasing them individually from Games Workshop's official site, because these are mini models from the Warhammer Fantasy game. If they're all together in one box and a lot cheaper, then I'm definitely going to do it. So I'm glad you brought that to my attention. Was that the only one that they have planned? Warhammer Quest Silver Tower Battle Mage, Warhammer Quest Silver Tower Lord of Plagues. They have some negative ratings, which means... Oh, okay, interesting. But yeah, I would probably review it. I guess. I don't know. Is it worth a review for 4 characters? Maybe not. What is the oldest game in your collection? Interesting. I'm sorry I keep rubbing my nose, by the way. You know me, I'm always sick. My temptation is always to say The Queen's Gambit, because that's like the late 90s. Is it 99 or 2000? Whatever the movie came out, right? 99. Yeah, well, okay, it depends. Like, Space Hulk's original edition was a long time ago, but if you mean, like, the current edition that I have, when was it actually published? Probably Queen's Gambit. Thoughts on the board game Outlive, the Kickstarter that just wrapped up? Yeah, I was actually considering backing that. I didn't know it was actually done already, but yeah, it seemed alright. But I don't back anything anyways. I probably wouldn't have. I can't wait for your review on Dead of Winter, The Long Night, and Pandemic Cthulhu. Hell yeah, that one. Yeah, I'll review them both. I just don't know when I'm going to get copies of them. I'm getting scooped by everyone left and right, so I probably will not be the first to have any of those reviews, but I will do them eventually. Where's your drink? I actually have a soda from Burger King, but it's a little too early to have a drinky drink. Thoughts on the Goonies card game that had been on Kickstarter a while back? I'm a huge fan of the Goonies, so I backed it whether it's a good idea or not. Well, entirely on you. But so it's from a different publisher. But I've had really bad luck with iterations like that of TV shows and movies, but primarily from IDW Games, which is their games are mostly shit. I'm just going to say it at this point. But this is a different publisher. Maybe it's good. It is just a card game. I actually looked at some of the gameplay. Like, I don't know if it was the videos or just the pictures and explanations they had on the Kickstarter page. I was very unimpressed. I was like, but again, why would you have a Goonies board game? I don't know. But hey, listen, it might be great, and if you're a huge fan, I can understand for sure getting it. If you were to make an estimate, how many board games do you think you've played throughout your life? Throughout my life? Well, I didn't play a lot of board games until recently, but relatively recently. It has to be over 500 at this point. Not a lot. My friends and I love Eldritch Horror. I actually will be reviewing the expansion for that very soon. There's a new expansion out. Signs of Carcosa. What other games should I get if I do love Eldritch Horror? Thinking about Fury of Dracula, Mysterium, and the others. Well, those are all very different, by the way. I hope you understand that. But if you like Eldritch Horror a lot, Runebound, the new edition, is fun. Although it's competitive. Warhammer Quest Silver Tower. The D&D adventure games are interesting. I'm just thinking about cooperative games that are more fantastical or, Zombicide's fun. Anything in that kind of genre would be interesting. But as far as like adventure games go, I think Runebound, the new edition, might be work for you. Although that's competitive. It can kind of be played cooperatively. Well, okay, so why don't you give a small update on Kickstarter and these live Q&As if you feel like mentioning it? Well, I kind of do. I mean, people ask me about Kickstarter projects all the time, and I'll comment on them. I think that's enough. Has a designer or publisher ever been sued for using a particular theme design mechanism? All the time. I just read a news story about a Chinese publisher who was sued by, I think it's DV Jiochi, the company who originally produced Bang, the card game. They sued them because this Chinese developer made a version of the game that was themed to ancient Asia or China, but otherwise, other than the theme being different, was exactly like the original Bang. And guess what? They lost. Bang, the original publisher, lost the lawsuit. And a judge, I'm not sure in which country it ended up being adjudicated in, just said, you have no right to these mechanisms. You just don't. Which I thought was a very startling precedent to set. There's been other instances where it went the other way, though. So a U.S. judge ruled in favor of, I think they ruled in favor of Wizards of the Coast, the producers of Magic the Gathering, in their lawsuit against Cryptozoic for their card game Hex, Shards of Fate, for saying it was way too similar to Magic. And I think they settled that lawsuit, or they won it outright. So it happens a lot. I'm sure there's lots of other ones I can't even think about. Okay, well, I'm going to finish this up with the last few questions, and then I'm going to stop it because I have to. I know you love Imperial Settlers. Have you tried 51st State Master Set? No, but I have it, and I will review it within the next few weeks. Aren't you worried that putting your Purgatory into storage will actually increase your likelihood of not reviewing older games? Listen, if it does increase it, it's by a couple of percentage points. That stuff's not getting reviewed anyways, so it's a semantical question because it's not getting reviewed anyways. This actually enables me to have a clearer picture of what I want to review that's more pressing and to focus my attention more. So I think this is better. Nick, did you... my artist, my new logo, you can have him to thank, says that I get the layered version of the logo that I wanted. I did not do it yet, but I haven't really tried. I have to actually get Photoshop. But if you want to do that for me, I would love it. Thank you very much. And that's very inside baseball. Don't worry about that, guys. And any thoughts on a Game of Thrones LCG 2nd Edition? I've had it on my shelf for 6 months. Eventually, I'll review it. All right, guys, we're going to end it here because I do have other stuff to do, including going to the storage unit. So, thank you so much. I love our weekly Q&As. I'm sorry I didn't have more content for you this week, although my Karuba review went up this morning. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. As usual, all of you lovely boys and girls, and so on and so forth. Have a fantastic weekend, and keep Muhammad Ali in your thoughts, because I was always very I always admired him a great deal, and think that he was a true American celebrity and hero in the best sense of the word, despite some of his shortcomings. So very sad to hear about his passing. But in any case, thank you very much. Have a great day.